Hi Israel, I'm back again. It's Ari. So I found this other article. This was kind of old, not very old, but it was written in CNN on Monday, July 27th, 2020. This is in the sports area, but I wanted to use this as another example of not everybody is buying into this movement. You have people that of influence and a state of influence. They have an instant influence in an industry, a particular industry, and in the sports industry. And this particular industry with the NFL, this is a very, very popular, a very rich, a very affluent white man who has made some statements in the last week or so, week or two, that is, caught my attention when I was perusing CNN. And so I wanted to read this article to you and make a couple little comments. So here we go. MIke Ditka says kneeling athletes should get the hell out of the country. Pro Football Hall of Fame coach MIke Ditka didn't mince words when he was asked about athletes who kneel during the national anthem. If it was up to them, this is what he said, if it was up to me, I say no. Ditka responded when asked about kneeling. If you can't respect our national anthem, get the hell out of the country. That's the way I feel. Of course, I'm old-fashioned. I'm only going to say what I feel. Ditka is the chairman of the X League, which is a women's tackle football league that, according to its website, is set to make its debut in April of 2021. The X League did not immediately respond to a request from CNN for comment. So basically, Mr. Ditka is saying, first off, let's just remind ourselves what Kaepernick did when he was kneeling, why he was kneeling back in 2016. So he's a former San Francisco 49ers quarterback. Colin Kaepernick first began kneeling in 2016 as a protest against racial injustice and police brutality. The same issues that led up to Ahmaud Arbery and George Floyd, I think that's his name, I hate to get his name wrong, George Floyd, I believe his name is, being murdered by a police officer, and it being videotaped. And this is what the kneeling, the protest was. It wasn't that they weren't going to play football or anything like that. It was just, okay, this national anthem, even if you listen to the words of it, right, they're making it sound as if everything is hunky-dory in this country, and this was a very small way for them to protest the injustices against racial profiling and police brutality of African American people in this country. So it was just really interesting to hear this man actually come out of his mouth and say what he said. But it gets better. Hold on. So once known as the Lingerie Football League, it was rebranded as Legends Football League in 2013. In 2019, the Legends Football League announced that it would be shutting down. The league was rebranded once again as an Extreme Football League, or X League. And the 2020 season has been postponed until April of 2021. It said, Ditka has spoken out against kneeling before, and he apologized in 2017 for his controversial comments on the matter after he said, there has been no oppression in the last 100 years that I know of. So how could this man sit up and say something like that? How could he actually say there's, and then this is what he really believes. So who cares if he comes back and he apologizes? This man said there has been no oppression in the last 100 years that I know of. The subject has returned to the spotlight again, with professional sports resuming play as social unrest continues across the country following the deaths of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Ahmaud Arbery. I think there's a way you protest and there's a way you don't protest. Ditka continue. You don't protest against the flag, and you don't protest against the country who has given you the opportunity to make a living playing a sport you never thought would happen. Hold on a second. So just because first off, the majority of NFL players, a good number of them, and NBA and other sports too, are There's a lot of black talent, a lot of black bodies out there being banged the hell up. Yeah, it's voluntary, but I'm just saying, don't tell a grown man that's making you hundreds of millions of dollars that he can't protest being treated badly, because he should be grateful that he has a job. No, you should be grateful that they have decided to lend their talent to the National Football League, which in turn is totally underpaid, if you ask me, considering the money that the industry and he makes off of that talent. But then he has the audacity to say you don't protest against the flag. It's our right to protest against the flag. It's our right to protest against injustice in this country. That's what supposedly makes America so great, right? Is that our freedom of speech, our constitutional rights, right? These are the things that he's saying that black folks don't have the right to do, because we should be grateful for the opportunities to make a living playing a sport you never thought it would happen. You never thought would happen. So I don't want to hear all the crap. You want to try it. You don't, it's okay. So this man, this is, it's not like he's talking to grown men. These men are the source of his wealth. Sounds familiar? These men who he's saying can't protest the injustices against people that look like them, against them, okay, that they don't have the right to do that. So just shut up and play and throw that football and block that, and tackle, like that one female commentator told one of the basketball players, LeBron James, just shut up and dribble. That's the audacity of these people. So this just lets you know that there is a arrogance and a mindset that exists in this country, that you are lucky we allow you to do A, B, C, and D. You lucky that we just don't go, we even pretend that we're going to allow you to seek justice. This is the kind of arrogance and reprobate mindset that we're dealing with, right? He says you don't protest against the flag. The flag, it ain't that object is not what we're protesting against. Don't you get it? And don't protest against this country who has given you the opportunity, as if black folks blood hadn't been shed in this country. The only reason why the NFL is as great as it is because of black talent. The NBA as well. The baseball league as well. You got the Spanish, and the black talent is what makes it great. That's what the talent is. Not saying that the white guys don't, but everybody knows that it's the black talent that makes the money. And you do have your good quarterbacks now. I ain't trying to say they ain't good, but Mr. Rice was a pretty good quarterback. I don't care what nobody saying. He was a black man. So, but black people aren't given those opportunities like white men are. So, and like football and stuff. But anyway, so, but he said that's how Mr. Ditka feels, right? And so we all know that the objection to the protest was being made because of racial injustice, racial profiling, and police brutality in this country. And so Mr. Ditka and all his wealth and all his influence, he thought it was okay for him to say, just shut up and throw that ball and tackle and block, and I don't want to hear your mouth, because you lucky that we are giving you the opportunity to do this in this country. And my final comments on this is that, with Corona being taking out industries, not only just jobs and people, but industries, and this industry here is going to be affected. Now, the sooner they get the vaccinations and all that kind of stuff, then Corona for COVID vaccination, then people feel comfortable about going to sports again, and then the players and stuff will feel comfortable about actually playing contact sports, right? And then so the industry can rebound. But I think it's a really, for Israelites that play these sports, in particular football, you have traumatic brain injuries and stuff like this condition. They call it CTE. I can't remember what it actually stands for, but it actually causes these guys to have CTE. They have these concussions that they have by playing these contact sports and stuff. And this starts as young as when they're in whatever little the tiny leagues or little leagues or whatever you call them in school and stuff, grade school and high school and college. These guys, they have traumatic brain injuries, concussions for years, and so by the time they retire from the NFL or they leave the NFL professional, they have a tremendous amount of problems. And I'll put a link in the description box to kind of talk about, go over some of that stuff. But I think that you know, some players have decided they weren't going to play in the 2020 season, you know, and they just kind of sort of said, nah, I'm not going to do this. But I think it was like 60-something players decided they weren't going to participate in the 2020 season. And I think that's a good thing. But I also think this is a good opportunity for Israelites that are playing professional sports to kind of, you know, figure out a way to earn a living and live way, way below your means, because I can tell you, this is just the first wave of what Yah has for this country and this world. And I think everybody needs to take heed, and I think that you have people that aren't listening, and MIke Ditka is an example of that. Shalom.